Good morning, my name's Patty Long. I'm a program specialist for CAS, and today we're going to be working on how to administer CAS tests, everything that you needed to know. And what's so great about this is I am seeing so many brand new faces. This is really amazing. And Netta, you want to introduce yourself?
Netta Anasari from the Sutter County Office of Ed and also with CAS.
And she's working on her training for implementation training today too, so she can be a trainer for this. She is a TOPS Pro trainer that will do this afternoon. So how many of you are, I'll try not to do the J thing of walking back and forth. I saw that yesterday. How many of you are brand new to CAS testing? You've never done it before. Okay, and the rest of you have done it a lot. Well, some have done it a lot, but some of you have done it somewhat. Somewhat? Okay. All right, it's good to be all on kind of the same level. So I'm sorry, I'm thinking about how I'm going to do this. Because usually I get people that have been doing it for 10, 15 years. So today we're going to go over all the ins and outs of testing and hopefully answer all of your questions. I just want you to keep in mind while we do this, any standardized test that you've ever taken follows the same kind of rules that CAS is. CAS is a standardized test and approved by the National Reporting System, a contractor for the Office of Vocational and Adult Education, or whatever it's called now. I'm going to let Netta drive. And I'm sorry, there's just so much smoke that I don't think if any of us are drinking it. Sorry? I swear. So just a little think about it. This isn't something that we actually have to share. But what's your agency's process for intake? Student comes in, then where do they go? What do they do? Do you have a set process? Today's going to be a great day to start thinking about what that process should be and to standardize it for your agency so that everybody on your staff knows what the process is. This is going to solve a couple of problems. Make sure that you get everybody that comes into your program registered and a pre-test. And again, getting the teachers not to accept students that just walk in and say, oh, I saw you last year, I want to be in your class this year. That's when you lose those people and you don't get pre-tests for them. And don't hesitate to ask questions, but chances are the question that you have is coming up. So this is actually a certification process today. We're going to certify you to administer CAS tests. It also meets the yearly training requirement if you're from WIOA and are here. Anybody from WIOA agencies? Okay, this meets the CDE training requirement. And again, to ensure uniform testing practices. So we report to the state, we report to the feds, and we want to make sure that those testing results mean the same thing. So if you're testing a little differently than another agency is testing, if you're switching the timing up or anything like that, the test scores aren't going to mean the same thing. I want everything to mean the same thing. I'm saving a story. I have stories. So we're just going to go over what the CAS system is. It's not just a test, but it's got curriculum in the sense of outcome measures and ways for you to take those testing results, get reports, and to be able to target instruction in your classroom. So 3 hours, that's how it starts getting filled up very quickly. Okay. So CAS was started as a grassroots project. So people that were teaching down in San Diego area, LA area, teaching adult ed in the early 80s, people that had come back from the Peace Corps realized that they didn't have any standards for teaching like the K-12 did or like the community colleges or college universities did. So they decided to start creating some curriculum outcomes. And they met with teachers and programs from across the country and collaborated with all of this. So this is all field-based, field-tested, and Wasn't just developed in the back room somewhere, promise. Okay, so let's go. There's the word that I need every morning. Everybody remember the Betsy DeVos Senate hearings? And she didn't know the difference between a proficiency test and a measurable gains test. Yeah, so CAS is not a proficiency test. So if you go in thinking that the students need to finish the test booklet, no, it's not that kind of test. It just monitors where the students started in your program and where they end up in your program. And it's just based on their own test scores to themselves. They're not compared to other students. It's also not a life skills test. I get a lot of that, especially with the AEBG contracts coming out a couple of years ago and people putting their things, oh, we can't use just the life skills test. Well, it's not. The life skills aspect is what's the shell around the academic skills that are being asked. And these are the life skills that our students live every day. So it makes a real connection with them. That's why we don't teach, obviously, just academics. Like the student left in 4th grade, that was his last year of school, he's now 35, so we're going to put him in 4th grade curriculum, right? We don't do that. Okay. You're so good. I don't know if you've gotten a copy of this. You don't need one. I know there's some of you that want everything in a paper copy. And we really used to have to use this. The CAS's competencies booklet with the different content areas, and then under those content areas are these specific outcomes that we're looking for. And we use those, every test question is related to a competency. And then when you get your testing reports, that competency is referenced. But the tech guys, bless their souls, have written the competency statement out on the test reports. So I date myself. You no longer get this little report and then have to flip back through this to find out what 3.4.5 is. It's all on every test for you. But if you are working on your curriculum at your agency, it's a great tool to have to see if is there anything missing that you decided that you need to add into your curriculum. So again, here's what the booklet looks like. And you notice that everything is numbered. And that again is so that it can come out in these testing reports. Are there any questions about this? These aren't divided by level, these competencies, because you can teach them at a variety of levels. And we will never ask you to remember the difference between competency area, content area, and competency statement. Even I don't remember. Which is why it's on a slide. Content standards. Content standards are the academic skills, the literacy and academic skills that are the basis of test questions, and then again just couched in those life skills. So you see with reading we have, and I know it's tiny print, but that's the only way I can fit it on the slide. We have all of these reading content standards skills, and they do go from by level. So they start at the very lowest level and go up to the highest level. And today we'll be focusing mostly on reading. But if you're giving listening or math tests in your program, we have the content standards for that, and we have content standards for writing and speaking for your own curriculum that you can use. And again, there's dozens of things underneath each of those items. And I'll show you where you can find some more information. So how does this all fit in together, these competencies and content standards? So we used to do this activity that was a problem-solving activity for a class. And it was the student has left for work, Bob has left for work, his car doesn't work, it broke down on the freeway. What does he need to do? Well, he needs to call his boss, he needs to call 3A or a friend, or figure out when he's going to be able to be at work. So a lot of things go into this. So the competency is using a telephone directory for this problem. And we know nobody's using telephone directories, and it'll get changed eventually. But at least it doesn't say telephone book anymore. And then the reading task areas, which we haven't talked about yet, is, I love the order of the slides. Advertisements, paragraphs and directions, and reading maps. These are all the different ways that this competency can be presented in a test. So here we have a Yelp page. A Yelp page that I'm very proud of, by the way. Because our fake database that we'll be working on this afternoon is Rolling Hills. And I didn't realize that there was a real Rolling Hills in California. But lo and behold, I found a Yelp page for Rolling Hills for auto repair. And so this is how your students would probably access information that they needed for auto repair. So the content standards that relate to this is locating information organized in groups or categories, finding a word or number in alphabetical, numerical, or other ordered listing. So we've got Hilltop Automotive and Hero Auto Service. Scanning simple text to find specific information. Using supporting illustrations to support text. And then we've got the photos over there. Use capitalization as a clue to interpret words. So what's great about this is that it's something that the students would and could actually use. It's not a page out of a textbook or anything like that. It's just a real thing that they can pull up on their phones if they want. But this lets you see how much is involved in being able to use this material and solve the problem of that student needing to get to work but the car is broken down. Really good to explain to new teachers who are sure that they can do the car broke down, what does the student need to do in that day's lesson. But this breaks it down to all the individual skills that the students need to just solve that problem. So there's a lot more involved. And there's a lot more than that too. So task areas, bless you. Task areas, so this is how the question is presented in the test. Is it a form, a chart, a matrix of any kind of maps? Is it narrative, signs, price tags, measurement scales and diagrams? Or is it a picture prompt for listening tests, comprehension question, predicting the next line of dialogue, identifying the true statement based on a prompt? So the pie charts, the job applications, presenting the same material in a variety of ways is really important. Okay. So again, how does it all fit in? We've got this, this is a sample test question off our website. And it looks like it's a very simple question. We're going to dive into this a little bit. Okay. Some of these are just a picture screen. I'm thinking maybe I didn't bring it. Okay. So California has an assessment policy. This is required by the feds. So all agencies, whether you're WIOA Title II or AEBG, are all testing in the same way. So again, just like WIOA, you need to be testing all of your ABE, ASC, and ESL students. Pre-tests as soon as the student walks in. Remember, you want that lowest possible score so you can show the most gains. You don't want to leave students in a class for a couple of weeks and then test them because you're losing all this. You're not going to get credit for all those gains that they've made. And if you want to see what the document looks like, it's on our homepage or the California Accountability page. Okay.
And just to clarify,
yes.
This is done, you want to revise your assessment policy every year and leave it in a binder so that whoever your data manager is has an assessment policy after that.
And knows what the process is at your agency.
What about the appraisal? So that I thought there was an appraisal, a appraisal that you did, and then you put them into the correct pretest.
Right. We're getting there.
Oh.
Sorry. I know, and I rearrange this thing all the time, so I'm never too sure what works best with everybody. So here's the whole process. Just know that there are state guidelines also for testing. But the appraisal is the tool that identifies which test level the student's going to test in. And again, after 18 plus years of classroom experience, I was never able to accurately put people in a test just by looking at them. And I just said, oh, he's a B level. No, it just all goes wrong. Give the appraisal. You do have the option of giving an appraisal that your agency has written, but chances are that it lines up with the CAS's pre and post tests or slim and none. I had an agency that insisted on using their placement test to place them into tests, but their placement test was all grammar based, which the CAS's tests are not. Use the CAS's appraisal. If you're doing e-tests, oh, that's a good question. How many of you are using e-tests? Okay, there's a locator included in that. When the student signs in for their first test, they'll be given a locator, and it's pretty short. It's like 6 questions, right? If you find that the locator isn't working as well as you'd like it to with your students, there is a longer appraisal that you can switch to in there. Some agencies have no problem with the locator, some do. They find that the students test way too high.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
I teach ESL, beginning low, and we usually do the e-test, except for those that are not computer literate. We have packets with booklets. What about students that are pre-literate?
We'll get there.
Okay.
I promise. Okay, so we're going to give them the pretest after the appraisal, then they're in the classroom, and then the post-test. Recommended 70 to 100 hours. The state has a bare minimum of 40 hours of classroom time. And again, we'll talk about that some more in a bit. So let's talk a little bit about the test booklets and forms. You notice that they're all different colors. This is the slide I've been looking for something else. There are 2 forms of each test level. This is a federal requirement for any standardized test. So they're the same level. They're asking essentially the same things, and it's all been normed so they know that it's all working together. But you can use one as a pretest, one as a post-test if the student remains within that level. That's the idea. And you want to make sure that you never give the same form number in a row. So you wouldn't give an 81 and then an 81 and an 81. You want to give an 81, 82, 81, 82. Because remember, not a proficiency test. The students can be in this test level for some time. And so you can just go back and forth. So just getting to make sure that you understand that an 82 is not a higher level test than an 81. Same level test. National agency. Okay, I already said all that.
And if we're doing e-tests, then we don't choose it. Just
It'll choose it for you. And actually, the next assigned test report that you can pull up will pick the correct test for you. Trust that.
We're doing e-testing, and sometimes I've noticed that it'll give them like a bridge test, or it'll give them like an 85, which I've never given. So is that normal for the system to give that test to that student?
You can actually go into e-test and ask it not to give that 85, 86, just the 185, 186. But the bridge level test you should be giving, because field results told us that there is a huge leap between level A and level B. So CASAS came out with this bridge level A test.
So it wouldn't be unusual to see that, like even on a pre-test?
No, be just fine. Okay.
I have a question. Can you, I'm still confused on the 505, 506, 513, 514 as opposed to the Life and Work series?
We'll get there.
Okay.
Promise.
Okay.
Okay, so again, ESL uses Life and Work Reading, the Life and Work Listening, the 980 series, and you can give either reading or listening. Doesn't matter, or you can give both. For ABESE, also the Life and Work Reading goes up to beyond high school level. The CASAS Life Skills Math 30 series. And we do have a new test coming out, but please don't ask me when because I don't know. It's been over a year. We've been waiting for it. And then, here's your answer, Rhonda.
Okay.
If a student scores a 235 plus on an appraisal, that's the appraisal. Then you have the option of giving them the language arts forms 513, 514, and math 505, 506. It's just got a more academic look to it. You can still give the life and work reading.
So for
E-testing and they score 235 or higher, we can switch, okay.
You can retest them then?
Hmm?
You can retest them on a 513 or 514 if they got a 235 or how?
No, we're talking about the appraisal.
Oh, the appraisal.
If they come in and they're so high that they take they get a 235 on their appraisal, then they're able to take that test instead.
isn't that the level at which you no longer have to do the pre-post test?
No, that's for AEBG.
Yeah.
It's 246.
246. Okay.
Thank God I went to the training yesterday with Jay.
Is it the same level of rigor
Yes,
between the two? So
Yes.
it really doesn't
doesn't matter.
matter.
It's just the look of the test.
I'm sorry, totally new to this.
All right, go for it.
So I am lost with what the numbers mean and how they are different from the letters. Are the letters the level?
Yes.
And the numbers are the series within a level?
Right.
Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, I know. Just remember one or the other for now. The big exam comes later. Yes.
Is the appraisal basically the entrance test?
No. No, that's the placement test. Since we have all of these leveled tests, we have the A, B, C, D level tests, and we don't know what the student's able to do when they come into your program, then that appraisal will pinpoint which level test, and I think I've got a slide coming up. Go one more just in case I can see. Go back. I do have a slide later that shows you. The appraisal has like 25, 30 questions, and it goes from A level to D level.
So it's a separate test?
Yes, yeah. And then that will tell you whether they're going to take an A level test, a B level test, or a C level test, pre and post.
Or you can use the CAS.
Or if you're doing e-testing,
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. So, but in e-testing, you don't have to worry about it.
it's all done for you. Another reason to go e-testing. Yes.
One question. For those students that are going to be enrolled in the ABE or high school diploma classes, do we have to appraise them in math? Do
No.
we have to?
No, don't have to. Could. If you want to know their math skills, it would be a good idea. But you can just do reading.
Yeah, because it takes like 2 hours and 30 minutes, you know, appraisal, I mean the English appraisal, English, math appraisal, math is like 2 hours and 30 minutes.
But the student has come to you for a good education, and trying to rush them through this process and just throw them into any class just to get them into class really does them a disservice. Taking that time to accurately place them and get an accurate picture of their skills is really important. So I understand it's 2.5 hours, but it's 2.5 hours really well spent.
Well, totally I understand by the English or just the math portion, you know, it's just
Depends on
wondering.
what they're needing to take, because I do a high school diploma program, and if the student already has their math requirements met, then I'm not going to give them a math test, obviously.
Okay.
But if they still have
That's
math
right.
requirements to do,
Yeah.
then it's good to know what their skill level is.
Perfect, thank you.
Good. Thank you. Anything else? No, I do get feedback from agencies saying, well, we don't have time to do an appraisal and a pretest. You better make time. Because otherwise, what happens to that student? They get placed in the wrong level. Do they ever come back and say, oh, but this class is too hard? No, they just disappear. If the class is too easy, do they say anything? No, they just disappear. So it's so much easier to keep students that walk through your door than to try to find more students to walk through your door. It really is worth the time to invest it. All right, so I've got slides coming up that we're talking about e-tests and we're talking about paper-based. We will always have paper-based. There will always be agencies that need it. But the next slide's going to be yellow if it's computer-based and brown if it's paper-based. And you will see very quickly that anybody using paper-based wants to go over to e-tests. If it applies to both, it's all in blue. So I guess I should have handed these out. I'll do it later. Test administration manual. There's one for the appraisal. There's a test administration manual for every test series. So this is the secondary level series. Cannot find my Life and Work Series 1. I've left it somewhere. Somebody's borrowed it. But these are vital to getting good, accurate results and knowing what you're supposed to do when you're testing. So again, it has all of this. We call them TAMs, Test Administration Manuals. But they've got a script for you to read. If you've got a new staff member, new to administering tests, maybe a little nervous, there's a script to read. They don't have to remember what to say to students. Answer keys, scoring guides, score conversion charts. We'll talk about RADA scale scores soon, and all this other information, including a test security contract in the back that we'll be talking a little bit about. You want to talk? Oh, fine. Okay, so again, test security. It's pretty well set up if you're doing e-tests, but you do have to have a double check in place. Make sure that if you've told your proctor that the system needs to be shut down at the end of the last session, that somebody goes in and checks that it's really shut down. Paper-based materials, you've got to keep them all under lock and key, number them, and then when you're handing them out to students, you count them out, you count them back, and it's, yeah. And everybody's responsible. Anybody who's touching those test materials needs to sign the test security policy. Accommodations. We have lots of accommodations, and they change all the time. So I don't like to put everything up on a screenshot because I always have to change it. I just send you to our website. If you have a specific question or a special question, you can always, thank you, you can always call us at CASAS, and Dr. Jenny Posey is our expert on accommodations. But there are some things that you can do without even, a lot of things you can do without even calling us. If you have documented disabilities for a student, this is key. You can allow extended time, give supervised breaks. You can provide a sign language interpreter for the directions only, however, you bear that cost as the agency. You can test in a different room. You can do that if the student comes in with these documented disabilities. It's not an appropriate accommodation to read the test questions to the student, ever. You don't read the test question, you don't read the test answers to the students. There are practice questions that you can do with the students, so you can go over the whole process with them, make sure that they understand. But no vocabulary. Are there vocabulary pens anymore? Does anybody use this? I don't think so. Any dictionaries, calculators. Cell phones have become a problem. Students take snapshots of the tests, whether it's e-tests or paper pencil. You need to have a policy or agency of what's going to happen when you catch a student doing that. Do you take the phone? Do you insist they delete it right there? Or do you call the principal to come in and handle it? But again, that's an agency issue. And it does reflect on your test security, right? You've got an obligation to make sure that those tests and those test questions are secure. And you break those, that can be an issue. For WIOA Title II agencies, it's a big issue because you're required to use CASAS tests. So if you blatantly let those things slide by, then there might be an issue. For computer-delivered tests, you can change the display, you can change the font size, you can change the background color. That helps some students. the time allowed you can change. Now you don't want to change the time. It's a 30-question test. They get an hour, but you don't want to make this the 8-hour-long test. Right? We're just looking to see what the student knows, not looking to see that they finish the test. So keep that in mind when you're adjusting that time allowed. I did have somebody ask, so if they can take 10 minutes every day for 5 days. No. For paper-based tests, you can use a color overlay. We do have large print booklets that for all the test series. We have large print answer sheets that are actually really good for your low-level students because there's a lot less clutter on them. And then we do have Braille tests. So you can always order those. They're in our catalog. If you're WIOA Title II, you can get the large print at no cost. You get one set. But I recommend always having a set on campus. So again, go to our website, see what's been updated, and if you still have questions, give us a call. We're happy to find the answer for you. Yeah?
I have a question about the allowing the time. For the e-testing, we have 60 minutes for all the tests, I think pretty much. Isn't that right? So we cannot adjust that.
Actually, you can adjust it, but the tests are supposed to take just an hour. And again, we'll get into that a little bit more. I gotta take this thing off because I'm
More
hot.
permission than it was. Are you allowed versus?
Can you?
Yeah.
Let's do that. I'm overheating. I feel like I'm going back in the ring. There you go. Maybe if I do. So attractive. Pretend it's a corsage. Okay. So let's talk about the appraisal. Now that we've kind of got an overview of the testing, again, we have the computer-delivered ones here, paper-based here, and really take the time to do them. All right. Again, a lot of these slides, I know it looks like there's a lot of slides, but some are just here to give you a visual. The slide I was waiting for. So here's the range for the appraisal test from 180 to 250. And once the student tests with that appraisal tells you which test level they're going to take, and you'll notice that they've got 30 questions here, and it's all within a much smaller range. So it really does pinpoint where they need to be. Thank you. Oh, this one. Okay. So for your low-level ESL people, who was asking that question? There you go. In the appraisal manual, there is a screening test for your lowest level students that if you notice when they're filling out their registration form, they're having difficulty with their name and their address. Right. Go ahead and give this screening tool. And while it's very formalized here, it doesn't need to be. It's a couple of questions. They've got a couple of questions to ask them. What's your name? Where are you from? And then there's a writing sample. Just do a quick little dictation. Whole thing takes 10 minutes to do that. But you see a lot from this little bit of information.
So what do you do if they fail? They can't do that. Next. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oops, not quite next. Yeah, we'll get there. That's just a screenshot, not needed. Oh, see, I was cutting down some slides. I see I missed. All right, so if the students don't pass that screening, you want to give them that 27 or 28. Remember, they don't have to finish the test. There's 2 pages of practice questions, and then it gets into the test. They need about 4 or 5 right to get an accurate score. If they can't do this, then you go into TOPS Enterprise and you mark too low to test, and you test them again in a couple of weeks. because it's not a skill issue thing, it's more like a nerve thing, right? They had to have, even though they don't realize it, they had to have some English skills to actually get to your program, to read the street signs, to know the address and all of that. So they really just need a couple of weeks just to relax. And then they'll probably be able to do plenty on this one. If they do well on that, and you don't want to give them the appraisal because they're still low, just go ahead and give them the 81. Sometimes it's the appraisal that can kind of freak them out too. And I think, and I'll pass these around, but I need them back. Now the problem with the paper pencil tests is that you'll place it in front of the student and they'll go to the back to see how much they have to know. And they'll go, oh no, I can't do this. No, 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 no. And just take a breath and just answer these. It's a lot easier. Less of an issue with e-tests. Okay, so again, the appraisals, oh, I left the script. Don't let the students guess. Tell them just answer what you know and stop. Don't need to finish. And you've really got to make sure that you're monitoring what they're doing. If you're sitting up at the front desk and they're all doing their tests, things can go awry. Students will be marking D, 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 all the way down, making a picture on their Scantron, right? Or even on e-testing. They just keep hitting next, next, next. Walk around, see what they're doing. If you start seeing a student struggling and they've answered a few questions, you can ask them, are you done? You can be done. You don't finish. And then pick up the test from them.
So on e-test, they don't have to mark an answer to move on to the next question?
Depends on how you have it set up.
All right.
See how I managed to block those e-test questions? I know that one. Ned is trying to teach me. Okay, let's go on. And the appraisal instructions are all in your test administration manual. We certainly aren't going to read them here. I had a lovely activity where we have 2 people be students, 1 person be a teacher and do it, but it lasted 1 set of trainings. All right, next. So for scoring the appraisal, we have raw scores and scale scores. The raw score is the amount of questions they answered correctly, and then you have to refer to the scale score, or run the next assigned test report and it will give you the scale score. In your test administration manual, you will have a raw to scale score chart. You'll have 1 for the appraisal, and you'll have 1 for every test level. So you can't use 1 and use it for everything. You have to use that scale score chart for each level. So first of all, why do we have a scale score chart? We have so many different tests in CASAS. They are all aligned, and by that I mean if they have 25 questions or 35 questions, the scale score reflects that level across all test areas, and hopefully that slide is in here. But it's the only way to compare scores across different levels if we use a scale score. And this scale was created by CASAS for CASAS. It has no reference to anything else. And you start learning these scale scores, or at least most of them after a while. So we've got the example here. This student had a raw score of 12 on the appraisal, and her scale score would be 212. So we're going to use that 212 to determine what pre-test that student's going to take. So again, we did 212, and we see over here that a 212, we're going to place this student in a level B test. Whether you give them an 83 or an 84, it doesn't matter. And we're not going to do an activity. General testing guidelines. And would you watch when we need to take a break, maybe in a half an hour? Remember I told you to think about any standardized test you ever took in school. Again, the same rules apply. You want to make sure that there's adequate space between the students. If you're packed like this, you want to put just old school file folders in between everybody. It doesn't prevent them from cheating if they really want to, but it does give them the idea that, oh, I'm not supposed to look at that other test. Everything gets taken off the table. Everything. Phones, if they have an Apple Watch, I suggest blue painter's tape, right, because it's easy release. But I can understand they don't want to take it off, but it's got to be covered. If they want to know what time it is, they can look at the clock or watch what the teacher is putting on the board, because that's where we're getting some interesting reports. They don't get to talk. If they have a question, it's not about a test question, obviously because you can't help. Scratch paper is allowed only for math tests, no other tests. I always get asked about listening. Can't they have scratch paper for listening? No. And I did double check it with the office, and they said, no, that would make it a reading test, which I thought was very funny. And then when the test is over, you pick up all that scratch paper, and it has to be shredded. And again, no cell phones, no dictionaries, no calculators. So again, you want to take the time to show them how to answer the test correctly, whether it's in e-tests or paper-based. I hope that's not a comment on this whole process. The trick that I finally learned with paper-based tests was that if you've got a multi-level class, and every class is multi-level, you take the highest level tests, so let's say the D-level tests, and you hand them out to those students that are taking that D-level test with their answer sheets. And then you take the time to go over the practice questions, and then go around and check their answers. And I want you to just think white space, not just on paper, but in that room. You're taking the time to go over that with those students. And then you go around, and then you can start those students off on their tests. Then you hand out the C-level tests and repeat the same process. You go over the practice questions, you make sure that everybody's answered it correctly on their sheets, and then let them go. By the time you get to those A-level students, they're busy saying, no, I'm fine, good, no, don't explain it to me, I got it, let me just take the test. It's awesome, because they've now heard the directions 3-4 times. So again, it took me a long time to figure that one out, but it really worked for me. Again, how you present the test makes a big difference too. If you're taking your time and you're being very clear about everything that you're doing, getting them ready for the test, they also will be nice and calm and ready to take the test. If you throw the booklets in front of them or throw them in front of the computers and say, okay, you've got an hour, hurry up and go. Or you've got one of those teachers that say, CAS, this is a waste of our time. I don't know why we have to do this, but we have to do this, so you're going to have to do this. The attitude of the students will come out in their test scores. So give them time, make it relaxing as much as you can, and keep it calm. Okay, next. Again, guessing, not good. Circulating, very good. The positive attitude, and students with disabilities. Why is this? Every time I go through a PowerPoint, I think, why did I put that there? Again, while the students are testing, you want to circulate, make sure everything's going okay. Making sure that nobody's having a meltdown. Occasionally you get those. Everybody gets an hour to finish the test. If they are working on a question at the end of that hour, they can finish that question, but no more. That's why all of our instructions say they get about an hour, which I find totally confusing. They get an hour. That's it. On e-testing, we notice that students finish at 30 to 40 minutes, and that's fine too. But you don't want to keep the testing at 40 minutes and expect everybody to meet that. Okay. After the test, you notice this is brown. These are all the steps that you have to do with the paper pencil. You have to pick up all the tests. You have to count them before you let the students leave. Make sure that the answer sheets are filled in properly. There will be a big difference in the scores if the test is marked, the test record is marked 82R or 82RX. Then you start getting these substantially low scores. You need to make sure that the test booklets are clean, erase anything that the student might have done. Again, a purpose for monitoring, because no matter how much you tell them don't write in the booklet, they will write in the booklet, and then no. Shredding all scratch paper from those math tests, and then they have to be returned to a locked location. Not the classroom that I did a presentation in a few weeks ago, where the stack of them were sitting on the desk. But it made a great visual. Okay, let's get through pre-tests and then we'll stop. So again, now that we've gone painstakingly through the process for giving the appraisal, pre-tests and post-tests run the same way. They have the same rules. So again, they get an hour. Well, I'm sorry, for the appraisal they get, like, I think 25 minutes. It depends on which one that they're doing. Pre and post-test, they get an hour. And again, all of the same rules apply. So what's appropriate, what's inappropriate, reviewing those practice questions together, providing a start and end time on the board, even if they're doing e-tests. Provide, I know, I never know how to get those timing things off of there. Again, providing a relaxed, unhurried atmosphere and providing scratch paper for those math tests. What's inappropriate is reading the questions to the students, and I know I've said this before, but be surprised at what people go home with and call me later. But you said, no. No translation devices, no limiting time for testing. And my story is, I got a call from an agency in California that said that they were having problems with their test scores. They were just, no matter what they were doing, the test scores weren't improving. And I asked them about their testing process, and they said, well, we test by proxy. And I thought, well, this is going to be a good one. So what they do, or it did, because we provided new training, was that when half of the students were finished with testing, they'd pick up all of the tests. Yeah. Which, let me just emphasize, a big no. Big no. I don't want you to go back to your agency and say, Patty said we can do by proxy. No, that's my example of bad testing. All right? Everybody gets an hour, whether they need it or not. Yeah. So let's talk about those scores, those scale scores. For pre and post testing, we need valid scores, accurate scores. So with every raw to scale score chart, the first 3 or 4, if the student only gets 3 or 4 right, it's not enough to score on the test. So you need to retest the student immediately at a lower level test. The accurate range you see is quite large. And again, because it's not a proficiency test, anything within that yellow area is a great test.
So you said something like, you said immediately? Like after, like if we see that score, like just immediately we have to.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So we're talking about like another hour probably.
Yeah, but you want an accurate score for your records and for this. But hopefully you're not waiting an hour to see that they could only answer a couple of questions on the test. You're walking around the room and you see at 40 minutes they're still on question number 3. It's time to pick up the test and give them a lower level test.
Sometimes like they spend the hour, you know, and you think they are doing great, they're answering everything is fine. But then at the end when you see the scores, I mean, you see that score.
Right.
So like, they already took the appraisal, they already spent 25 minutes, they already spent 1 hour, and now they're gonna spend another hour.
Yes. Yes,
They're gonna
because
be sent to take the 27 hours. That's what it is, right?
Yeah.
After that.
well, no, with the 83 it would be 81 or 82
Okay.
or 81x, 82x.
Okay.
Yeah. So I really would suggest you get off this time limit because it's all time invested in their education. It's not time that you're wasting at all. And I think you'll find that as the rare issue rather than a common issue.
Back to appraisals, they're 25 minutes typically? Is
Yes.
that-
Again, but you've got to go back into the test administration manual because different appraisals take a different amount of time. But I think we're all using 80 right now, isn't it?
They are, but if they're using e-test, they're using the 102, and that one's shorter. So,
Yeah.
That can
Okay.
take up to 15.
If they have an asterisk on their test, that means it was too
Hard.
hard, right?
So
And
you
then
want to,
Then that should be retested again.
Yes.
Right away.
at a lower level. Yeah.
There's a question.
I was just wondering if that 102 is available in paper, if you guys have a shorter version.
Mm-mm. No, because it's an adaptive test. So if the student gets that one question, yeah.
For the question in the back as far as the, that other hour to test them, it depends, it could be a local policy, but if you choose to, that one student, if you had that one or two students and they were going to attend the class, the following week or the next day, that could be to set aside time to pre-test them, then maybe if it's that one or two students. Because you don't find this
Very often.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's that one or two students that probably get that below accurate range, and then you could set, before they start class, capture them. So it's not in that same testing session if you're worried about, proctor or time set aside for the lab, or, because I can understand that.
Okay, but the system will allow me to do it again.
E-test, yes.
Yeah, e-test.
Paper, yes.
Okay, and then, oops, sorry. Oh, good, I do have those slides. So after the accurate range, you start getting these diamond scores. These are conservative estimate scores. That means that while you've got this scale score of 234 or 231, something there, it's not a terribly accurate reflection of the student's skills because they were able to answer too many questions. You have the option of retesting that student at a higher level or just keeping that score in your database, and that's fine too. The problem's going to be that you know that you now have to go to a higher level test for the next test. So you have to go from an 83 to a 185. And there is a jump between levels. You want to move them to a higher level here rather than down here. So the chances are that their test score will go down, but it'll only be momentarily until you post-test again.
I just missed what you said. So pre-test and they get a diamond, give them a different pre-test.
Right, you can test them at a higher level right there.
Yeah, okay.
Well, you've got them.
That's the better plan.
Yeah. And then that way you don't have the problem of the test score dropping,
Right.
which gets everybody depressed. Teachers panic, the students think they're failures, which isn't true. Yeah.
What if you get a diamond on a post-test?
That's fine.
Retest them again on
No.
that? No?
No, you don't have to. On a post-test, it's fine. You can, if you want to go ahead and move up.
So if the students, they get a diamond on the pre-test and they get like a higher score, or like for instance 232, and then on the post-test again you get a diamond but it's a lower score, is that still like, still they are diamond like a 231 or 230?
So what pre-test did you give them, for example?
513.
Okay, that's where the issue's going to be. Is if you've got if you're doing those secondary level assessment series, there's only one level to go into. And again, CASAS or TOPS Pro will take the first test score and the highest test score they get throughout the year. So if they're pre-testing at 246 and above, it's not that big a deal. Just don't worry about it. But hopefully they'll get...
Post-test is going to be like a few points lower, but still they're in the diamond
Right,
zone.
and you have a pre and a post test.
Yes.
But hopefully they're getting their high school diploma or
Yes.
GED or something that year to get that credit, that measurable skill gains. I want to sit. I'm sorry. Nope, we're short a chair. I'll get one during the break. Oh, wait. I'm not like Jay. I just can't stand there for 4 hours and talk. I admit it. Oh. Thank you. I don't like being this low, but oh, sorry for the camera guy. Now, see, he's got to adjust. I've caused a problem. Okay, and it's a small enough room, right? You can see me. So, valid scores, accurate scores, inaccurate.
Any other questions on this one? No?
And again, your next assigned test report will tell you what the student needs to do next. All right. Oh, no, I don't. Oh, he's going to shoot me. All right. This is a really great slide. So it shows you why we have these scale scores. And so you'll notice that this student got a scale score of 180. Or I'm sorry, it's 186 on a level A test. Another student got a 186 on the 81 RX, and somebody else also on the B level test. But you notice that this student had to answer 12 answers correctly to get that 186. This one, because it's a more difficult test, had to get 7 right, and this one only had to get 4 right. So you see how the scale score works so that we can now compare across. And then we have definitions for what that 186 means, those level skill descriptors that we'll get to. So regardless of which test they took, it's that score that makes the difference. So a 186 is a 186 is a 186, no matter which test you're giving. Those students all have the same set of skills for that test that they took. I love that slide. It only took me 10 years to figure out that slide.
You suggested that students not go through the test booklet and just guess at stuff.
Right,
It
no.
doesn't affect their raw score or their scale score, does it?
Yeah, I mean, if they're guessing and they're getting stuff right,
They guessed enough of them correctly?
yeah, then they could be placed in the wrong class. They're going to be placed in a much higher level test than they really can do. So you really don't want them to guess. Yeah, don't guess. Just stop the test. I feel weird being so, I mean, I'm always short, but. So here's, again, another example. But we're good. So do you have copies of your skill level descriptors? Yeah. Should look like, thank you. We'll show you where you can download them from the website, and I'm so sorry you don't have them. So it's usually in the box. I won't name names. So it looks like this. You get one in your test administration manual, and if you come to CATESOL next week, I'll give you a copy. Nice thick paper. But it shows you the skills in positive terms, what the student can do at whatever skill level they get. There's one for ABE and ASE, there's one for ESL. And I've heard great things from teachers that take this, maybe they'll white out some of the more difficult stuff. If they're not giving math tests or listening tests, they'll white out that, or they'll recreate it themselves. I think we've got simplified versions on our website. And have made into posters and put in the classroom. Because hopefully you're getting the test results back to your students. And if they see where they fall here, no matter what level they are, they can see that they're at the bottom, and they can see the growth that they're making with those post-tests, and so they buy into the system quite a bit more when they can see their own progress on those tests. So these skill level descriptors, really important. I'm sorry you don't have copies. Thank you, Netta. I'll probably be getting up in a minute too. We're not doing the activity. Unless you guys are really dying to do some role play stuff. Yeah, figured. Okay, so go ahead, Netta. Oh, I'm sorry. Go back. So with our skill level descriptors, Here we have our 186, and for ESL, the description is a little different than it is for ABE, ASE, and that's okay too. And it even covers a broader range. But again, gives you the skills that the student can do. Everything in positive terms, no lists of what they can't do. I have to think about what I'm going to say. Okay, so for AEBG and WIOA, we use the National Reporting System guidelines, the breakdown tables for levels. And students' placement at a level is based on their pretest score only. So whatever the student gets for their pretest score is going to be the level that they're reported at for state and federal reporting. Why? So that we're comparing students that are at an intermediate low level for ESL in reading. In California, we compare it with Florida's data. It means the same thing. We know that those students still have that, they have that same skill range if they're a 186. What does this mean at your agency? Nothing. Nothing. You do not need to have a class for each of these levels. Remember, it's one skill that you're testing, and you certainly wouldn't place a student in a level based on one skill. Through your orientation process, your entrance process, you're going to make a decision about where you're going to place that student. You're going to look at their educational background and use that to help you decide where you're going to place them. Right. State, feds don't really care where you place them. That's up to you. But again, for a student that gets a 186, will be a 186 for that whole year. And then all of their gains are based off of that score. Is that pretty clear? I get confusion about this later next week. I'll get phone calls. So do I have to have a class for those students? No. Yeah, I think it's a good time to break. Let's go on to instruction. So remember, the CAS tests don't mean really anything if you're not getting any instructional reports, or if you're not getting reports for your students. How many of you get reports back after you test? So we'll go over some of the reports that you can ask for from your TOPS Pro person. And sometimes that's what you need to go and say, hey, I need this report for my class. It should be an automatic thing at your agency if you set up your processes for getting students in, getting them pre-tested, and then getting those reports to the teachers very quickly is an important part of that process. Because again, you'll never have teacher buy-in unless you're giving them these reports that show them how their students are doing on CAS test. Okay. So one of the typical reports is class performance, and this shows you for this 82 RX, 28 students, or 28 tests we have 26 students that took those tests. Anybody tell me why there's more of one than the other?
Because they're too high or too low?
No, but we're getting closer. It has to do with the pre and post test. So you can take an 82 RX as a pre-test, then you take an 81X as a post-test, and then you take 82X as another post-test. So we've got 2 students here that have taken the 82X twice, not consecutively, but twice for 28 tests. Okay? So we can see the teacher's name here, the site, and then we know it's the test item and competency report. That's what I got an email. I saw it last night, like at 10 o'clock. There was an email asking what the position number means in these reports. That is a tech writer's version of test question.
Oh, the number of the question?
Yeah. I know. I've tried. So the percentage of that question that students got correct, the competency number, so you get a bold number for the main competency, and then the supporting competencies are in regular text. What task area it is, again, whether it's a price tag or a chart or directory, and then the competency description. You can, oh, I'm sorry. We'll look at, oh, maybe I do have a screenshot of it, sorry. Same report, but now it's printed not by class, but by individual student. Well, not quite what I was looking for, but. So now we have just Manuel Ortiz's results that you could give to the student. And then in this report, in all of these reports, you can rearrange a lot of this information. So I can rearrange it so that it's not by question number, but it's by correct. I want to see all the ones that they got correct first, all the ones that they didn't get correct later, so I can target in on what I want to work on with them a little faster. No, no, sorry. I'm talking over here. The class performance report. Again, 28 students, or 28 tests with 26 students. And I've rearranged it again, so now it's by competency number, not test question, by task area. And then you get to see the number of items that are addressed in the test, or the number of times it's addressed in the test. So when I'm looking at this, I want to start looking, where am I going to get the most bang for my buck? Because you're obviously not going to work on all of these things with the students. You want to pick 2, maybe 3 before the next post-testing. And so these items where there's 84 items on this one area, and the students did 66%, it's not going to take that much to get them up to 80% passing that one. So that would be one that I would work on. And again, while it's got 50 some odd times that's addressed in a test, there's only 30, 35 questions. We can send you reports that'll show you how the test questions are graded, but because it'll have several instances of one, competency within a question. But how it's all counted, it's in this tech manual, it's about this thick. Good luck. I love it when I get the questions, where did it say that? Okay, I'm saying it. That's all the background you need. No, because it's technical and really dense material. Yeah.
I have to remember that this means next slide.
Her sign language.
Yes.
I was getting that from you really.
Sorry. Well, that was for Melinda was here. And sorry. This is a great report for especially your ASC students. So, individual skills profile report. It shows the last 2 tests that they've taken. Then it runs down the competencies for reading and the content standards for reading and how well they did. Literacy or listening competencies, listening content standards, because this student, even though he scored high, is ESL, not ABEAC. And then reading tasks, listening tasks. So you can start seeing where the student needs specific work. The student also sees where they need specific work, and it's so much less personal when it's a computerized report that they get, and it's not the teacher just saying, well, you need to work on this and this. But since he scored 236 on one of his tests, this box opens up. And it says this student has the likelihood of passing this part of the GED test. And I swear I've changed this slide so many times. We do now have the 2014 GED results. So though we were hearing that it's about the same. But that box will pop open for GED. We will also have one for HiSET as soon as that study is finished. We will not have one for TASK because TASK, what is it, McGraw-Hill? McGraw-Hill didn't want to share. So no data. But this works really well with the students. When you tell them you're not quite ready to test yet, here you can give them this, and this report tells them they're not quite ready to take the test yet. Or they're more than ready, go ahead and give it to them. Uh-oh. No, I'm thinking there's a lot fewer slides than there are. We'll go back and do some activities and fill up some time. How did this training take 2 full hours without activities before, or 3 hours before? Okay, so again, oh, sorry, next slide. So we have quick search online that we're going to show you in a minute. CAS's competencies, we've already shown you, but you use the content standards and the competencies from those reports that you're getting to look for materials to help you when you're reviewing with your students on quick search online. So can we get out to the internet and get to CAS's website?
Can I ask you a question?
Please. Spread of time.
I've got totally 2 questions. The
Excellent.
first one is, about 3 slides back, you had the competencies, the class results, and you chose the one that was like 60% passed versus 23% passed, because you said it'd be easier to get to the 80% with some instruction. What's the rationale?
Well, I used to believe that I'd go with the lowest performing item, right, and work. But you're really working from the ground up with that until I had somebody, Bethany, tell me years ago that, but wouldn't it make more sense to start more in the middle, because you have less growth you have to get from those students to get them to get eventually to 100%. Well, go for the middle and then watch how many times that item is addressed in the tests.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'll show you some more materials if we can get online. Yay! Can I drive?
Yeah.
Okay. And all right. Now the trick is, because it's not my computer, do I remember what my login is? If you don't have a CASAS account yet, please get one. If you're doing any online trainings, you have to be in the database for us to take attendance. So you need to have one of these login accounts. Yeah, not surprising.
We have one computer.
What? Not now. I have an account.
So there was a big update with the framework for TOPS Enterprise. And a lot of people.
Oh, yeah, we had to go in.
So you have to, yeah, and if you can't, your IT department will have to come in
It
and
was-
update the framework.
It was simple, though. It took about 10 minutes, and we didn't have to follow the
Well, we had
There's
to
no warnings that
record
come out.
every computer.
Oh, okay, we got a bunch of calls.
I was in Reading when it happened, trying to get onto the website.
Every room and every computer.
Do you want to tell everybody, actually, while you're talking about that?
Oh, did anybody get the new update for the .NET framework? It's, I think it's 4.7. We can't start
e-test?
For, it's actually for TOPS.
Oh, TOPS, I'm
So
sorry.
TE, you're going to have to update your framework on your computer. JT, you got that?
Well, I got on Monday morning, I think it was, and I couldn't access TOPS because I opened TOPS right away. And I talked to Ryan over at ITES, the help desk.
For your district,
Well,
yes.
but he said he has to do each individual computer while it's open and on. And so that's a little bit troublesome. And when I talked to Morale at CAS's customer service, I kind of vented a little bit thinking, why weren't we notified earlier about this? And that's what I was going to ask you.
I don't get that on film.
We have the same
Sorry.
thing. We have the same thing.
Yeah, you
have to do each individual.
There was like 100
Cut that part out.
computers that we had to go and open up and find their numbers, and computers have to be on. So right now we have one computer, his,
that.
Honestly, I think they thought it was going to be automatic, and it wasn't at all.
It would have been, from what I was talking to our IT department, there was something to do with Windows, and there had to be this update in Windows in order for them to push in this update in CAS Pro. And so they did a search on our computers at our district, and how many of our computers in our district needed that upgrade for Windows, so that those automatic updates that happen overnight with not just TE, but just that our own IT department pushes out, that aren't happening. How many in our district? There were 6,000 computers that they need to update.
We
So
will
it's
forward the
everywhere.
concerns to CASAS. Definitely we'll send them a message and let them know that that's a concern. But yeah, so if you're having a struggle and you're not able to log in, it's because your .NET framework needs to be updated. So contact your IT department in order to be able to update that. If you can't, I mean, I'm sure you won't be able due to restrictions through your IT department, so you might have to contact them.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to talk about quick search really quick. So when you're getting ready to do your, I'm losing everybody.
All right, let's bring it back in, folks.
I know. You don't want to know what happened with Jesse and me on the phone Monday morning.
Do the old, raise your hand.
Actually, I can do this. We want listening coyotes. So don't be insulted by this. I just think it's hysterical. I have a married couple friends that do this to each other at the dining table. And I'd never seen it before. It just cracks me up. All right. So we're going to talk about quick search. So as I got one set of training, are you telling me that before a post test, I have to stop what I'm teaching and teach something to the test? It's a good idea. But there's ways that you can work it into your current curriculum. You don't have to change topic areas or anything like that. So let's look at a couple of things. And since I really have a hard time finding anything on the website, I just go up to the and I've given trainings on navigating the website. It doesn't work well. So quick search right up at the top. Usually there's some advertisements for the first ones. So it says try quick search online now, try it now, and then log in. Okay. So here is quick search. It's our own little database. All major publishers are included. It's updated throughout the year, not just once a year like it used to be. So publishers come to us and say, hey, I need to update some information. We've got a new text series. So let's say we got one of our reports back, and the competency was health. And you're going to have to remember the number for me because I always forget by the time I get to something else. And fill out medical health history forms. So that's the one I want to work on because that's what.
Yeah, you're going to have to use the pad, the mouse pad.
And go down to next. Why?
Because of the internet. Remember, Melinda was saying that we have to go on.
I'm glad somebody was listening.
It's already on there, so I don't understand. It's not approved.
You want to go get Melinda and see if she, and I'll tap dance until you get back. So, no, I won't make you suffer. So with this quick search, we'll see in a minute, you can see that you can work through the actual competency area to fill out medical health history forms with your students. But you can also apply that to, if they're having a problem filling out a form, you can apply that to any topic that you're working on. Right? If you're working on shopping, grocery shopping, they fill out a form if they want to get one of those reward cards. Everything they buy is tracked. If they want to go to the bank, then they're going to fill out a form there. If you're doing that EL Civics co-op with talking to the police, they can fill out a police report. And it's a little simple form online. You can do online forms, you can do paper-based forms. Right, so don't get locked into this idea that it has to be medical health history forms. Typically, the problem is with the formatting, the task area, and they just need more, right off the rails. More practice with the actual task item and everything. So, and while we're waiting for that, good. Keep asking questions.
Okay, Evelyn.
Good. Oh, well, let's go here first and I'll come over to you.
What's the relationship between CASAs and EL Civics?
EL Civics is a special project for WIOA Title II agencies in California. It started about 15 years ago. And the idea was to create lessons for students to get them out into the public, so that they're not just sitting in class theoretically learning about going to the library, going to the police. They're actually going out and going to a police station. They're going to a library, and they're getting the skills that they need to do that. And the thing is, it was California specific, and then when the new WIOA grant came out, the feds took a version of it because they liked it so much. So that's where our integrated EL Civics comes from. But we're still getting to keep our own. So there's set lessons for each level, different performance-based tests that they take.
Okay, so I've been teaching it, okay, we're required to teach it. Because funding, we get reimbursed, we get money from it for our program. Same competencies, right? Same co-op, same competencies.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
Oh, and why does CASAS have anything to do with it? Yeah.
Thank you.
So, are the current materials there, subject matter that I can use for lesson planning?
You can actually go to the OTAN website, and there are lesson plans there, and they're coded by competency numbers and by co-ops, I believe. And because Lori and I vetted them a couple of years ago.
I work for OTAN, so what she said is correct.
Yay! And he got it on film, too.
What does OTAN stand for?
Because we have to update all of our lessons, they're all obsolete. You know, the paper packets that people made 10 years ago.
Oh, good Lord.
Yeah.
Hey.
Typewriter, stuff like that.
Yeah. So what you can do is you can go onto the website, on the CASAS website, and look at those EL Civics things. You can see what the other agencies are doing. Ask them for what they're using.
Okay.
It was done with federal funds, and I actually got an answer from Cliff Moss the other day. They were created with state and federal funds. They need to share the stuff with you.
So go to the CASAS website.
Under EL Civics.
Under EL Civics.
And then you'll be able to see what other agencies are doing.
Okay.
And what they've been doing for the last couple of years.
Thank you.
And just ask them for materials.
Thank you.
Oh, great. We had a question.
And I probably know the answer. The reports we were talking about, the class performance, can the teachers pull that up?
Yes.
And it's just all in the settings?
Yeah, we'll actually go through it in TE Basics. Don't we go through it in it? But there's a users group, so you can allow teachers limited access to their class. And they can run reports, and they can take attendance in TOPS too, if you didn't know that you can take attendance in TOPS. It's already built in. The only issue with the attendance in TOPS is there's no way to take, to hold those transcripts if you've got high school diploma students. Yay, what'd she do?
We need her username and password.
Okay. All right. So I've already picked out that I wanted a competency area, I wanted the health competency area, and I wanted that 3.1 point something, I don't know. 3.2.1. I'll buy you your lunch. And so now I want it for ESL. And I'm not too worried about what level it gives me because I've got several levels in class. And let's say I want a textbook. leave everything else blank so I get a broader range of searches. So these are all of the texts that address filling out medical health history forms. If you open your textbook or your teacher's guide, I think it's in the teacher's guide now, you'll have that scope and sequence, that big table grid. One of those columns is CAS's competencies, and so that's all in here. So you don't have to go through and figure out which competency it is. Just type it in here, find it. And then you can look for your, oh, I like this book. Then you can look for your book. I didn't realize it was still on there. It's awesome. And it will tell you what page that 3 point something something is. 3 point. Right there, fill out health. So go to Unit 3 in English, no problem, Book 1, and there it is. So that's how much prep you need to do, right? With that one teacher, I had her say, so I have to create a whole lesson plan on this one. No, just go find where it is. Look in your book and find out where it is. This is also a good resource if you're looking for new materials. I got to say that this one's a little old. Oh, yeah. And but if you're looking for new materials for your school, this is a great place to look for them too. So let's go back to, let's go content standards. Okay, so we're going to go blue for content standards. Ugh, math, God, no, sorry. My physical response to seeing the math competencies. So we want to go to next because that's pretty low and that's covered in everything. We do have new content standards coming. Oh, thank you. We have new content standards coming out that are aligned with the CCRs, College and Career Readiness. Those should be out soon. Reading comprehension. I think it's let's look at vocabulary. So let's say our 2.10, reading 2.10 came up. Interpret less common prefixes and suffixes. And well, at least you saw the slide before. Well, that's annoying.
Yeah, so that's not working.
But then you'll get the same kind of list with all of the content standards on it instead. You can look by title. So if you've got a specific book that you use and geez, I've been out of this for a while. Oxford Picture Dictionary.
Standout is a new one.
Is there a new standout, really?
Yes. Yeah. There's a new step forward too.
Notice that there's not a new English, no problem. Hey. All of it we're working. Then you just go into the item that you're looking for. Let me see if I can get Oxford Dictionary. And then it will show you where that item is addressed in that book. You can search by program level and skill. If you're just, again, if you're looking for new texts, this is the place to do it. Let's say I want something for employability. And let's say ESL. Is it going to let me do both? And I want it at the intermediate level. And I want a textbook. Yeah. Oh! We probably won't get any further, but again, all of these choices start looking through. And then if you click on this information on internet access that will actually let you in, it will give you all the publisher information too. So you, with the phone number, you call them and ask for a desk copy. Again, by publishers. You can get information by tests. So I want the life and work, reading, and I'm going to do it for ESL and just see what comes up.
worked for an agency that had a very big library of books from all over, and that was around for years and years. And so all I had to do is look up the competency or what I was teaching, or maybe it was EL Civics module, specific module, and then I can go find it in the library, find the page number, you know, and deliver the instructions. So this was very helpful.
Boy, Crossroads Cafe is still there. All right, so you can look it up by test level. You can, there's a tutorial, which it really doesn't need, I mean, it's pretty simple, but there's a tutorial there. And then we've got some stagnant reports. You can also get these in TE. But here's your CAS's competencies if you want that booklet. It's all here for download. This is an underutilized little gem, test competency content. So it shows you by test what competencies are covered. So you're not looking at that whole book now you're just looking at what that test covers. Oh, and I don't see why, it's been around for at least 2 decades. But people always ask me, so I just want to work on stuff for this focus time on just what's on the test that they're going to be addressing. All right, right there. CAS's content correlations. Leads you to nothing.
Just for my clarity, so there's curriculum in CASAs that matches CASA's exams.
It's not curriculum in the sense that I think of curriculum, or that anybody else probably thinks of curriculum. It's outcome statements. But how you get there is decided by your agency. So it's being able to fill out those medical health history forms. That's the outcome statement. We expect the student to be able to do that at the B level. And then we give you the resource to find out where the prep materials are, but the curriculum itself has to be defined by individual agencies.
So this is the prep material you're showing us now?
Yes.
Both outcomes and prep material? Or
Yes.
Or are these forms an example of prep material?
Yes, prep material. For, sorry, yes.
How about the same for ESL?
Yeah.
I mean, of
And
course, you
what
have
about
to have
earlier you were talking about OTAN? Is there material?
Yeah.
Is that separate from that?
And hopefully I can get to their own website through their web access. But I want to show you a couple of things on the CASA's website first, since we finished so incredibly early. No wonder Jay was thrilled that I cut out so many slides out of that thing, because he had to give the training too. And he said, oh, it's awesome. It's just no extra slides. Yeah, it's kind of short. I want to show you, make sure again that you sign in. And then I want you to go to the bottom left of the screen, and you'll see California Accountability. And that, even for those AEBG agencies, that's for you, too. Oh, for crying out loud.
The rest of the slides, yeah, we still have.
Did we still have slides?
Yeah.
Oh, all right. I'm so glad this is being
4
filmed.
pages.
All right, thanks. Since we're failing completely on our... Never trust web access wherever you're going. Thank you. Get me back on track. I think the reason why I thought we were done is because the process just gets repeated over and over again. Okay, so we did quick search. You've got slides to remind you how to get in there and how to use it. Very easy to use. And we don't spend a lot of time on post-testing because we've been through the appraisal process of how you administer appraisal, how you administer a pre-test. It's the same for the post-test. Okay. Now, and somebody even brought this up yesterday at the training. So we don't test after 12 hours. If you ever hear anything about 12 hours, I want you to forget it. Just forget it. It has to do with federal rules. Doesn't have anything to do with what you guys need. It just muddies the waters, something awful. So I've done my best to eliminate it from anything.
We do need to know 12 hours, not in the assessment realm, but just in terms of like students who are, I guess we do a pretest immediately, but there's a 12-hour trigger of students that are counted. I guess we don't have to actually do anything. It's just in terms of when they collect the data, they're going to see those who are 12 hours.
Right.
So never mind.
So, exactly. But that whole process is exactly why I say forget the 12-hour rule, because it's done at a higher level than the agencies. You don't need to worry about it.
That's a good question. So 40 hours is the minimum.
Right?
But what if you have, like I have an independent study high school diploma program. And let's say over the course of the program year, I have a student that does very, very little and has 30 hours in a program year. So they've done their 12, so they'll be counted by, their data will be looked at by AEBG. But I'm not required to give them a post-test for my data, my AEBG data. Because we've been told.
I think you've got a couple of things.
We've been told you need to do a pre-test and a post-test at minimum in each program year.
Yeah, I hope a lot sooner than that. You don't want to wait to the end of the program year ever, because you'll never see them. But 40 hours is the minimum, not the starting gun for testing your students. Now, you do have classes, I know there's GED classes and all of that, that don't meet for 40 hours. The students don't need 40 hours of classroom instruction. But what my agency used to do, and agencies are doing again, is a distance learning component. Whether they're doing it on the computer from home or from the library or somewhere else where there's not a teacher, or they're doing take-home packets still, if you're still doing take-home packets. You can stack that. I always think of Joann's Fabrics, right? You can always stack your coupons. And you can stack those hours so that they might have 20 hours distance learning and then 15 hours of class time. They'll still have enough hours to post-test.
But we also heard yesterday that for high school diploma programs in particular, you don't actually have to use the assessment tests. You can actually...
That's only if they get their diploma.
Right.
So if I have a student that doesn't accomplish much in a program year and doesn't get their high school diploma,
You're not going to show any gains at all if you're not post-testing.
so I'll post. So it's okay if I post-test the person
It's
with
always
less than 40 hours.
It's always
Okay.
okay. There's always exceptions.
Okay.
However, with that exception, you need to document why you post-tested that student before the 40 hours and have it signed off by an administrator. And when we get into the computer lab, I'll show you an easy way to generate stuff for that.
One of the things I do with our high school diploma, when they finish with their course, even though if they don't have the 40 hours, I give them the post-test, because then we can gain from that one as well.
Right. So the problem comes when people think that, oh, you don't have to post-test high school diploma or GED prep students. And that's absolutely not true. Remember that there's a cutoff. If that student pre-tests at a 246 for AEBG, 236 for WIOA, again, I'm so glad I went yesterday morning. Nope. Nope, sorry. Then, and remember, that's the pre-test. That's not any post-test that they get along the way. We expect students to get up to that level. A lot of students to get up to that level along the way. We're only talking the pre-test in that fiscal year. If they hit 236 for WIOA, 246 for AEBG, no, you don't need to post-test because you're not going to make a gain from that post-test. However, anything lower than that on a pre-test, you want to make sure to post-test so that you can get a gain of some kind, a measurable skill gain, so you can show on your records. If you're not post-testing students and they didn't pass the GED or high school diploma, you're going to have no data to show.
So I heard something differently. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Yesterday in the training, what I heard was Jay say that you have the low and high level, and then it's at the teacher's discretion. They can actually move a student from the 9th to 10th grade to the 11th, 12th grade, even if they don't get their diploma, and that is actually counted as, yes, for diploma. and that's actually counted as a skill gain.
Different than
The-
GED high set prep.
Yes, but I'm talking about for diploma classes, and that you don't actually need to do this.
And that's only AEBG, so we owe
Right.
people
But
ignore
that's
this.
what I
But
heard.
but aren't you a college? Right?
We're in a consortium that has a bunch of adult schools,
Okay,
including one of our
okay.
diploma teachers right
So,
now.
and I think that's maybe where the confusion is, so, I think that was addressed towards the colleges, but the adult schools, they basically still had to.
Yeah.
I thought that it was diploma program versus high set GED, that's applicable to a diploma program.
We'll get it
Even at an
clarified with
adult
Jay
school.
and
Okay,
find
yeah,
out, but
because we never had WIO2 before, so this is all brand new for our teachers, and so, like, we have our diploma teacher in the back there, and we left yesterday saying, okay, so you just need to be able to move them from 9th, 10th to 11th, 12th, and that actually counts as a skill
for
gain.
community colleges, I'm agreeing with but for adult schools, no. But we'll get that clarified with Jay.
Please, yeah.
This is kind of a side issue. And
That's all right.
if
We have
you-
time.
Okay, but you can table it. You mentioned the distance learning and you said that even packets would be okay. And they sent out like a definition of distance learning a few months ago, the new AEBG definition. It said there has to be some sort of technology, special technology involved, like a computer, TV, DVD, something like that. Are you
Well, with
familiar?
these packets usually come usually come with a DVD.
Okay.
And it is very old school, but
We use that too, but then in our high school fluency, we use packets that don't have an accompanying DVD, so that's why I was like,
But
do
you're-
we count that time or not?
you should. You absolutely do count that time.
Really?
Yes, yeah.
So then why, so,
And it's not time on task, it's mastery that they're looking for, right? Because one student could take 10 hours, another student could take 2
Right,
hours,
right,
but
right.
you come up with what's
Standard.
acceptable for that.
interesting.
And we used to have it statewide, a statewide list of products, and then the amount of time allowed for each of those distance learning units. And actually, that's what Jay and Melinda, everybody else is meeting next door, because we've had a big discussion, we need a new list. Because CDE kind of dropped that. But
There's a blended learning and an independent study, so there's different forms of how you want to deliver the instruction, but I'll use my agency as an example. We have independent study, high school diploma. They are given an assignment, a book, an assignment, they finish the work, they go home, they do the work at home for a week, come back the next week. And when they're ready to take the test, they take the test, and that's how they move along, so. And that, they're doing that at home, no DVD, just the book and the paper.
We count that
And
time.
we count that, those
Instructional
hours. So if they
Right.
bring back the work the next week, that's how you finish the amount of hours that you were supposed to do.
I was told by OTAN that that's only applicable to diploma programs and not applicable to other adult ed programs. Independent study, that it has to be only independent studies only for the context of diploma, and distance learning is everything else that's not in the classroom for adult ed, but it has to fit this new description definition that
For AEBG.
that AEBG gave, which is
and they're VO
technology.
entitled to.
Okay.
Yeah. We're hoping to get everything leveled out so everybody's the same. Because trust me, on this end, it gets really confusing. But all good discussion. So take advantage of distance learning programs to up those student hours. Okay, so CASAS, as the test publisher, recommends 70 to 100 hours of instruction before post-testing. And I know that seems like a long time, but that's 25 years of research showing us that that's where the students really make gains. We know that you can't wait that long, but you want to go back and look at your attendance. If you go back to your Persister report, and I'll show you where it is, if you've been using CASAS or TOPS Enterprise for a year or two, you'll have some background data on how many hours did your students actually stay in that particular program. Then we take those hours and you back it up just a little bit, and then you've got a reason why you're using the data to show why you're post-testing at 45, 50 hours, right? Then because that's how long your students typically stay. So you want to go back and base it all on data. So the 12-hour rule, again, ignore it. 12 hours is where the students get reported to the federal government. It's not shown on any tables if the student doesn't have 12 hours. That's it. It has nothing to do with you guys. I know you hear that you don't have to do an update record if they haven't done 12 hours, but oh my gosh, the tracking of trying to figure out, has that student at the end of the year, did they have 12 hours? Did they have 11 hours? Did they have just do an update record for everybody. It saves everybody's sanity. And then you don't have to do all of that backtracking to figure out if they need one or not. By the time you've figured out whether they need one or not, you could have already done it and have it be in the system. Click, 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 update record done. So again, 40 hours is when Washington, D.C., Office of Career Tech and Adult Education, came to California to do a review of programs, program monitoring. And yeah, they didn't like that a lot of agencies were testing so soon after the pre-test. I name no names of agencies, but I have a witness. That yeah, there was a time that we wanted that pair of tests for the federal tables, not necessarily the gains. We wanted a pair, so we would post-test pretty quickly. And California's hand was slapped strongly. And so the feds came in and said, 40 hours. 40 hours before post-testing. Again, there are exceptions. You want to make sure it's exceptions and not a rule. If it is a rule for your class, again, if you've got this GED prep class and the students only meet for like 20, 25 hours, you need to put that into your local assessment policy. So you've got it written. This is a standard procedure for our agencies. These students only need about 25 hours before they are ready to test. So we're giving them some distance learning. We're doing what we can, but these people will be testing at 25 hours. Document, document, document.
What about the learning gains and the payment points? Is it still like if they were testing and then they're making gains, they're going to be getting payment point for how many gains that they make, or is it just?
Yeah, we need to go back to that slide. And I know AEBG doesn't get payment points yet. No, yet.
Once we move towards outcome.
Yeah, I like having it on film. Okay, so everybody understand the 70 to 100 hours, the 40 hours, and the 12 hours.
One question about the hours, and we can combine the hours if students goes to multiple classes.
Yes.
In the same, we can just
Right.
combine all
Right,
the
right, right.
hours
If they're
together.
taking 2 classes, hello. Oh, we've got a question for you.
Got back
Good. How did that happen?
Yes.
Psychically?
somebody magically.
Oh, good.
So I'm trying to
That was impressive. Thank you, Jay. I mean,
Well, I wouldn't say
just
that.
hit.
So, yes, if they're taking multiple classes, you add all those hours. Remember the Joanne's coupons? Stack them. They're all valid.
So if that's the case, it will be better to test them when they have 40 hours or 50 or 70. For example, some of them, they can accumulate like 40 hours in a week and a half.
Yeah, so
4 weeks.
that's that first post-test hits that time mark.
Okay.
After that, you can wait longer.
Okay.
But if they stay longer, I test them much after that 40 hours.
Okay,
Don't use that as the starting gun.
okay.
All right, here was the question.
Oh, just we left yesterday with the understanding, we actually have the slide here, that instead of using pre and post tests for high school diploma programs, that you can move someone from the 9th, 10th grade level to the 11th, 12th grade level, and
That's correct.
and that's for adult ed and community college.
Yeah, I don't think it's understood that probably it'll affect adult ed more just because, it's more likely for the schools to have the credit system for high school, but if you have a high school credit system, sure, it doesn't stipulate one or the other, it's just using whatever your credit system is. And just, you'd have to have it in the book somehow, however you document that at your school or college to show, I had this many credits at the beginning, it had that many. I think the audit part is 1 in a million. Do I really see the AEBG office policing Mendocino College on how you're doing the credits? I have to admit, I have a hard time seeing that happening, but nonetheless, that would be the thing they theoretically look for. That's what you would have as the underbelly to show that you were marking that in TE.
And that's AEBG specific, not WIOA.
It will be for WIOA also, actually, yes.
Oh, starting.
It's the Carnegie units will starting this year.
Okay.
I mean, like the AEBG reports, if you went to TE now, it's not in payment points yet either. There's a few tweaks there we need to do, just like for AEBG, the same dust needs to settle issue. But yeah, will be for WIOA. because the Carnegie units is a federal issue.
Okay.
So when you look at, this is TMI, but you look at those measurable skill gains, so you've got those 5 measurable skill gains, so now the feds would say table 4 covers 3 out of the 5, it has the pre-post gains, it includes HSE, as you know, like at ASC High, whatever, there's ways where HSE is included, and Carnegie units is also included.
Yeah, I think I kind of faded out when he says Carnegie units. Just
Yeah, but
one item too many.
Yeah. Well, so some of that matching, like his, the one that he and Neil fight about, that's the most popular chart, the one with all the colors and things, that's what I think we need more advanced CASAS training on. Is when you say that if I do these 3 things, then I can get that measurable skill gain. I think we need.
okay, we've got a focus group of 30 right here. Would people be able to stomach that is my question? An hour of somebody like me talking about nothing but bubbles and what the bubbles mean. Is that
Yes,
something people would really do, or does that sound like
Yeah.
bamboo shoot treatment or something like that?
CASAS does have other
It sounds pretty darn awful.
No, not kind of bubble, but what should my program,
That-
what component does my program need to
Well,
get
you're
there?
saying like the Neil says this or Neil, I don't think there's anything coming out, but Neil said a lot of time about that targeted tech assist project for agencies that don't submit or agencies that do and have bad data.
Well,
That
Gladys
sounds like a torture thing that maybe the agencies that have bad data need to go
Gladys says targeted
through
tech
is a
assist
bubble
instead of
workshop.
intervention.
That could be the real tiny bubbles.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
thinking
true.
Like, the
Because
Willy
we do
Wonka-
have a training that we've called Tiny
I'm thinking
Bubbles.
about the Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory version of bubbles where you're drifting and there's this little, thing that you can get caught up in as you drift up and up and up and up and up and up.
And the Oompa Loompas come out and
That
sing.
would be valuable to understand that
The
chart
Gene
instead of
Wilder
just being
version.
a
Yeah.
I'm not
5
sure
second.
what chart you guys are talking about.
You don't know Jay's favorite chart?
No, they just saw it yesterday. They haven't been immersed in it like some others
Oh, the
have.
martini one. Okay, now you're speaking my language now. Martini check.
That was one of
The
them.
martini glass works too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not a martini glass, it's the.
But
Funnel.
when people really do that, I mean, I'm
But
being
yeah,
a
that's
little
what we call it.
sarcastic, but I'm being now serious because that would be my
Tom Scott
concern,
about
is
it.
that just sounds like torture.
No, but especially the folks that are not,
Sorry.
that have.
No, it's good.
laptops.
We've got time.
I'll bet you guys wish you were in on more of our behind the scenes meetings.
When do they ever?
So people who are not WIOA funded, who are not familiar with, if you do this and this and collect this and make sure you report it here, it's gonna show up in the report.
So you're saying that needs to be a January 22nd presentation?
Yeah,
All those in favor?
I could be on.
So here's another curiosity, this is more on her behalf. How many of you are gonna go down to LA in January? Are a lot of you going?
This is for
The Universal Hilton thing?
we
Okay, so a
haven't
lot of
actually
people
announced the
are.
location
I know it's a
yet.
big, oh no, did I let the cat out? That's not secret though, is it?
Between you and Jay, go ride between you and Neil, go ride the Harry Potter roller coaster.
Is that secret?
We're trying to get the registration up, we're hoping by
Okay,
tomorrow,
sorry.
but.
I thought the location was a done deal, I thought it was just
The
the,
location is a done deal. The problem is
Registration
that it's
was not
open to
ready.
650 people instead of like last year where it was only 400. But statewide, we really need an event like CASAS for like 1,000 people. So, we're figuring out who's gonna.
Ours until very recently were all 600 and 400, so the 1,000 is new for us too.
Is it again gonna be each consortium gets to send up to a certain number like it was last year?
Right, basically.
Okay.
Okay, I just wanna say, Plumas County has not had an adult education course or program in anybody's recollection since 1970 or something. So this is all brand new to me. So when you
Okay.
start talking at this level of, oh, that's bad data or whatever, it's like, no, it's not. There's a lot of confusion, at least in my consortium, about what adult ed is.
okay.
So all of this stuff is brand new.
And you have an adult ed now?
No, we still are
Well, so, I mean, I'm just
fighting
being,
about what we're
I'm
gonna
sorry,
do.
I'm just being flippant about that program or whatever, but there is a program I've heard AEBG office talk a lot about where we wanna get this thing going. So I'm just being facetious that
Yeah,
my bubble thing
There's
just
still this
sounds
big
more like.
argument up there about what we're gonna do and how we're gonna do it. And I mean, if I were to take this back to them today and start explaining it, they would fall over. So whatever help you can give us, I mean, I'll sit in that hour.
So there is
training by
nothing too
myself.
so you're saying there is nothing too excruciating at this point.
Right. No, it's
You've
all
already been. You
Didn't-
can't get any worse than you already are.
Every bit of it.
Who am I kidding, huh? All right, it already is there.
Yeah,
And
see,
you can contact TAP and we can get you the help you
I'll
need.
make sure we get some, did they already bring contact us cards? I'm sorry, I don't know everyone in the room. I'm Diana Batista, I'm the director of the Adult Block Grant Professional Development Technical Assistance Project. And we are working with the AEBG office with our partners, CAS, who is primarily responsible for data and accountability piece, American Institute for Research, who does a lot of curriculum and program development, and then also OTAN, Outreach Technical Assistance and Networking, who does a lot of educational technology pieces. And we are available to provide professional development technical assistance to each one of the 71 consortia throughout the state. But we also have this really great kind of behind the scenes piece where you go to the AEBG website and you click on Contact Us. And there's a fillable form. Some of you have used it, I know. There's a fillable form where you can literally ask us any question, and then we're kind of like the 911, and then we deploy it out and dispatch it to the appropriate agency, unless it's something that we can answer. And then we make sure that someone gets back to you. I'm gonna say within 5 days, but I honestly think we've been doing much better than that. And I mean, that's something that we find up in the field. And then we also run the webinars. We do the behind the scenes of the webinars, and then a lot of other stuff that you probably don't even.
You and I need to talk.
Okay, and I'll go get some cards that will show you exactly how to contact us.
People up there think this is free money.
And it's not, and it's becoming less free?
Yep.
Yeah.
Does that make
More
sense?
expensive.
Yeah, we're actually, legislature we have their attention, which is what we wanted.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's be careful what you wish for. So what we need to do is that's why all of this data collection stuff is so important, because we need to be able to show them with data that this is working and this is why it's working, this is why we need more money, so now we can continue doing this and
We
this.
have a desperate need for this program up there, so.
Right.
Yeah.
So, sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, trust me. We just
Stretch
got
it out.
really early.
Okay.
So we've still got a little bit.
Somehow, some way, the question did come out of this discussion, or have we just tapped around that and we never really got into
No, I think we got it.
the original question and ignored that somehow? So everybody's okay?
I'll bring back some cards.
Okay,
All right, thank
I'll
you.
make the cards cut over.
thanks guys.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that was perfect because now we're gonna end up at the right time. Let's do the next slide. All right. Need the coyote listening? Somebody got really insulted once when I did that, so. I know. So, test preparation guidelines right here. So yes, you've got your testing reports, you've got quick search, you've got those competencies and content standards to really narrow down what your students need. And yes, you use that to prep the students. Use quick search, use the practice test. Now the practice tests available online do not prep the students for test questions, but it does provide a way for you to practice test taking skills, right? I think there's 7 questions at each level that you can use. Has been my goal for several years to create lesson plans for those. Have not done it yet. It keeps on getting moved on the list. So what you don't want to do is teach to a particular test item. So like a teacher that we worked with in the past, we had a teacher at Old Marshall, one of our outreach sites, that took photocopies of a test question in one of the test booklets that she had. And actually the principal went out for a surprise visit and saw her doing it. So strict talking to, went out again in a couple of weeks. The teacher was doing the same thing because she wanted her students to do better. Didn't get it. And she was let go. And she had been with us for years.
To add to that, there are sample test items on the CASA's website. So it's like in a PowerPoint presentation. So if at any time your teachers need to give a presentation on test taking skills or how to answer certain test items, that's available online. Also, on eTests, you can turn on the practice tests and use that in your classrooms. The teacher can use something like that. So, yeah.
You can practice over and over again. You don't want to teach specific vocabulary in a test item, and by that I mean an old test question, different series. The test question was a 4-line grid map, and it had, I think, 3 or 4 locations on it: the library, the grocery store, and the house, Joe's house. And up in the top corner, it had an arrow with the letter N on it. And at the bottom, the question was, which way does Joe go to school? So if you were teaching that skill, of course you're going to teach maps, and at a certain level you're teaching 4-line grid maps, but you wouldn't teach just north. You'd teach north, south, east, west. You would have more locations on the map than that. And you would ask several different ways, not how does Joe get to school, which way does he go, what direction does he go. You can use all of that, but you don't limit it just to what's on the test question. God, that was a terrible test series. It had a whole line of information of use the map below to answer the questions below. All right, it's A level. They couldn't read the directions. No, that's good. Next, assigned test report. You get this from e-tests or from paper pencil tests. As long as you put them in and put in all their scores, you'll get this out. But it shows you what test the student needs to take next. Very important for your teachers that are not terribly involved in the testing but administer the testing. So they've given out the assigned booklet to the student, and the student says, oh God, I hope nobody sees this film. Oh, this is too hard, and they start crying. And it's, I can't do this. I want the one that he's got. And so the teacher, wanting to be, so good-hearted and all of that, gives the student a lower level test. It doesn't work. It has to be tossed anyway because it's in the wrong sequence. This report keeps them in the right sequence. Don't let the teacher or the proctor or anything change.
But for e-tests,
it's all done automatically.
Yeah.
But even your e-test results will show up on this.
I had actually a problem. I gave it testing, and the students took like a 187, and then when they tested, they got lower scores. So when I retested, they gave them like a way below level. I had to retest the students, and then
Will happen once in a while, and that's because they probably got help on their appraisal and help on their pretest. Doesn't happen often, but it happens.
And you might want to use the Form 80 as for your appraisal. If that's happening too often at your agency, you might want to switch out the appraisal versus the locator. If you're finding that at your agency, I think
or the longer
so if you're seeing
appraisal
that more often
on e-test.
with a short CAD, then it might not be working for your agency and your school. You might want to do the longer appraisal. But I mean, and for most agencies, I think the CAD has been, because it's an adaptive test. So if they get it wrong, they get it easier. If they get it right, they get it harder. So it just depends on the agency and the population that you serve. And
So the next, I think we're done here. Setting up your schedule for post-testing. We've talked about this already. Go back and look at your historical data on your attendance, and you can use that as your baseline. Yeah. So again, what do you need for post-testing? Another reason why you'd go e-testing. You need that. Paper-based, you need to do this. Next. No activity? I already explained, what if Manuel said the test was too hard? You have to be cold-hearted. Learning gains report will show you not necessarily the measurable skill gains on this, but it will show you the difference between the pre and the post on how many points they've improved. So you can see general improvement, even if they haven't made that skill gain mark. Let's go to the next one, because I think I want to go back. All right, so let's go back a lot. I need to go to that NRS chart. I know, we're going. Everybody's getting antsy. Back. Yeah, oh, right there. Okay. So we talked about placing on this NRS chart. Their pretest places them at a certain place. Their highest post-test will tell you how many significant gains they made, or if they made any. So if a student pretests and gets a score of 222, they're in this high intermediate basic education level. They have to make a post-test score of 235 or above in order to make a measurable skill gain that's going to show on your charts. Right? So it's always wherever they fall in here and getting this top number. So honestly, a student can pretest with a 210, post-test with a 210, and they'll make a gain on the national reporting charts for your students.
Why?
Because that's how the chart is, right? It's really looking at these final numbers in that level. So you can have a student that pre-tests with a 201, so they're placed in this level. They post-test with a 209, they're not going to make a measurable skill gain. That's why you want to test multiple times. You don't want to over-test. Yes.
Even if it's also than that side of the table?
I'm sorry, what do you mean?
Even though it says 201 and 210. Oh, I see.
So they've completed that level.
So,
Yeah.
So if they came in at a 209 and they scored a 210 on their post-test, they just went up a level.
Yeah.
Got it.
No, they completed a
They
level.
completed a level.
It's no longer the 3 level.
Yeah, it used to be much more fair. No matter where the student pre-tested, if they made a 3 and 5 point gain, they got a level, but not anymore. Hasn't been for a few years.
What if they score like 211 and then they score on an intermediate level test, and then they're scoring maybe a 211 and they go up on to a 185 and they score a 211? Are they making any gain at all?
No, because it goes right back to that score.
Even if they've gone up a level, they don't get anything for going up a level?
Well, because those are leveled tests. Remember, we saw that chart.
Right here.
Thank you. We saw the chart that the scale score remains the same across all the test levels. So that has nothing to do with the score that they get for the NRS.
And that's why it's important to go back, even if you're doing e-tests, you might want to look at your next suggested tests report, because sometimes, and I know what she's talking about with e-tests, it's bumping them up. And I mean, you have to trust that e-test is doing what it's supposed to be doing, but at times, if you see that there is still room for improvement, not like a paper, you can just issue them.
Mm-hmm. But you can override that
You can, yes.
to keep them within the same level.
Okay.
But you don't want to if they're scoring up here
Yeah,
anyway.
there would be a judgment call and the teacher would say, well, yeah, he's still.
If the
needs to
teacher
be-
has had training in implementation and accountability, yes.
So it's the same thing with the listening part? Because I, like,
Yeah, it's actually a different charts. And there's different cutoffs for listening that we have in the accountability page.
so it doesn't have any impact if you do the listening about the points and all that stuff.
Well, they can make significant gains on their listening,
Okay.
but the chart is a little different. It's not the same cutoffs.
Just point systems.
Oh yeah.
NRS didn't like what we turned in, so they switched it. Okay, I think that was the last slide.
Oh, no, sorry, you guys. Don't look at the screen.
Oh wait,
Next steps.
go back go back 2. Test security policy. The test security policy you can download from our website. It's in the back of the test administration manual. You should have everybody at your agency who's handling the tests at all, whether they're giving them or not. If they have anything to do with the test, they need to sign this every year. Keep it on file at your agency. But it tends to bring home this idea that, oh, there are rules to this. We can't just hand out tests to whoever. Yeah. Trust me, we've seen all sorts of things.
So they need that yearly,
Yeah, it should be, they should sign it every year.
but they don't have to recertify to be a proctor every year.
Not for a proctor.
Not to be a proctor, but I mean, this is a great
Or
way to-
implementation.
Well, implementation.
Implementation for WIOA is required by CDE every year.
What if you're not WIO?
Then there's no requirement.
So once they do it, they got it.
Yeah.
So we're registrars, we check the books in and out and scan the tests and handle the data, so we would need to.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah.
And put in a binder with your assessment policy and it's the best.
Next one. Okay, so what have we done today? You've learned how to administer the reading appraisal. You've learned the difference between raw score and scale score, using the scale score to determine the pretest, which is actually all done for you online, how to administer the pretest, how to read instructional reports to analyze what the students need, prepare students appropriately for post-testing, and how to administer post-tests. Everybody seem pretty clear on, did we hit all those? Great. Next slide. We have lots of training available online. Just come to the CASAS website. A lot of them are specified for WIOA, but you're more than welcome to attend. We have actually coming up next Monday, we're going to be doing the teacher's handbook using instructional reports to guide instruction. CASAS from the inside out. So what's all involved in a test question if you really want to get down to the nitty-gritty? Assessment to instruction. That's actually the teacher's handbook. How odd. Using CASAS resources to improve instruction. And then we've got test security at your agency is another one. So there's nine. So the height of my technology skills.
It's pretty good, I have to say. That is pretty good.
I was just thrilled it worked. So again, let us know if you have any questions about testing, training. If you're one of those agencies that have had people around for a long time, but those people haven't gone to training recently, but they're telling you what you need to do, check with us. Because it becomes a telephone game, right? What they were trained in and then what's gone down the line. All right, so everybody's signed in, correct? Yeah. Go have lunch. See ya.